Hello and welcome to another episode of .NET in the Wild on a Monday today.
Yay!
And I have my good friend and all-round awesome person, Christina Aldan, to join me today.
Yay! Thanks for having me. Hello. I'm good. Dance party on a Monday morning. Not a bad way to begin.
I know. I just cannot help but jiggle along to that tune. That's why I chose. I was like, oh, it just makes me want to. Like, it gets me in the mood, ready to chat to folks. So
it's good.
So I've been looking forward to our chit chat, Christina, for ages, because you and I, it sounded very northern. You and I always have such great conversations. But why don't I know who you are and what you're about? But why don't you tell everybody in the audience a little bit about you?
Sure. So my name is Christina Aldan. I am a speaker, trainer, brand strategy consultant. I'm based in Las Vegas, Nevada. I am a soon to be author since I finished my manuscript, or do I say I don't know.
You are an author.
I'm an author.
Soon to be published.
Right, soon to be published. Yeah. There we go. And a mentor as well. I mentor different people who are going through parts of their career that maybe they're transitioning, maybe they're students, whatever, underrepresented groups in tech. And yeah, that's what I do. I love what I do. And I love Las Vegas. I love the weather here. It's beautiful right now.
Yeah,
favorite time of year.
It's so dry there and just warm. I've only been there once, and I was there in November, and it was perfect.
Yeah,
so
it's
lovely.
Perfect. Like April, May, my absolute favorite, and then October, November, just perfect weather. Yeah,
just that nice weather.
Yeah. No, I do love the summer though. People complain about the hot and the heat and everything, but I love the summers too. I like really being hot, so I don't mind.
I like it if I have somewhere to escape to. And so where I grew up in southern Spain, it got really, really hot. And in the first house we lived in there, we didn't have AC.
Oh,
And I remember there was like a
absolutely about
period
that.
for 2 weeks in the summer where I'm just lying in bed. You're lying like on a towel because it
Mhm.
feels cooler than a sheet. You're
Mhm.
like, no bit of you is touching any
Yeah.
other bit of you, and you're just lying there going, I can't sleep, and you got like a wet flannel on your forehead, and it's just horrific.
Yeah.
So I like it warm. I like being out and like
Yeah.
not having to wear heavy coats and stuff, as
Oh,
long
the
as I can go,
bundling.
I'm too now going into the AC.
Totally. And then of course, for us, then the AC is like a 40, 50 degree temperature split. And
Yes.
so you're always carrying a sweater around. It's like, well, it's July. Why are you carrying a sweater? Because I'm about to go indoors. That's why.
And it's going to be freezing.
It's going to be freezing in there. It's going to be
Yeah.
really cold in there. Now, I like to, the cool part about being here in Las Vegas, we're like in a bowl. And so 45 minutes, I could just go up the mountain. I could just go over to Lake Mead, bring the paddleboard out there, and it's nice to cool off. We usually go
Yeah.
camping. Yeah.
I've always wanted to try paddleboarding. It looks really like relaxing. Just
Yeah.
do you stand on the paddleboard or is it the kneeling?
I
Yeah.
stand in the paddleboard. I have the one that I have is inflatable. And so the rigid ones are a lot easier.
I
And
bet.
I asked around and I did so much research and I practiced and I tried one and I thought, this doesn't feel the same. I don't know. But then everybody kept saying, oh yeah, it's the same. It's the same. It's really not. It's really not. I got an inflatable one and you sit higher up on the water.
Yeah.
And so it causes your muscles to work even more. So you say it looks relaxing. It actually is not relaxed.
No.
If it looks relaxing, then the person on the board is doing it right. But
Yes.
trust me, they're not.
I'd be flailing around.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's fun. You could do yoga on your paddleboard. They have classes where you go out on the lake and
Oh,
you practice.
wow.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun. I
Yeah.
enjoy it. Even my kids love it.
Yeah, this is it. It just looks like something you can do as a group and of all abilities, and you can just stroll along in the sun, or you can sit on it and dip your feet in the water.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just thought, it just looks great.
Yeah,
So
we'll go out to the side of the lake. There's a fun little cove and we'll pull out some snacks and we'll tie our boards together, pull out a book, take a nap, just drift, it's fun. Yeah.
I'm very
One of my
jealous
favorite
now.
things.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite. And it makes the summers worth it. Like I said, when it's really, really hot, it makes it worth it. It's fun.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think I've ever seen anybody paddleboard around where I live. I don't think I've ever seen it. People do dragon boating. That's where like 20 people are in like this huge boat rowing.
And it's in synchronous too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we have cable ski, and that's about it. We have that inflatable assault course on the, on the water.
Right. Right.
But I'm not very
my
good
kids
with.
keep wanting to do those. I'm
Oh,
not. It looks like I would bounce around a lot and then fall into the water and then it would be over.
That's it. Like, I'm not great in the water. I just see this as all precursors to Layla ending up half drowned.
So I may as well just go into the water anyway, if that's
This is it. This is it. And whenever that hot here that it feels refreshing to go in the water, it's always like, oh my God, I'm going to get frostbite. Yeah, I'll have to wait till I come over to Vegas again and do it there, because that
absolutely.
Just sounds amazing.
No, we'd love to have you.
Yeah. And you and I first met, I think it was September or October 2019 in the Netherlands.
Oh, was it Eid? Was it Eid?
It was at Tekorama, I think.
Tekorama, yeah.
And
I really love that conference.
It's nice because it's in this old cinema, folks, and it's like your lecture theaters are actual movie theaters, and it's all comfortable seats, and it's very nice there.
I'm the brand strategy consultant, right? So they're branding. Like, I love all of their branding everywhere, and the way that they organize everything. The hotel's great. It's a tiny little village, and they give you, neat little places to explore just quickly by train.
Yeah.
It's great. I love that conference.
I thought it was really. I've only been there once, but I've submitted again this year
Oh,
because
yay.
it was very enjoyable that time, and nice to sit on the train for the hour out of Amsterdam to go
Uh-huh.
out. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, so we met there, and you were giving a talk on how to say no. I remember it
Oh,
so clearly.
thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks. I just gave that talk. In fact, I just brushed it up and delivered it in Colombia last month.
Oh wow! What,
Yeah.
in person?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
wow!
in
How was
person.
that?
It was great. I'm really, really happy that more in-person things are coming.
Yeah.
Like in the before times, it seemed like maybe I was on a plane every couple of weeks, every
Yeah.
2 3 weeks, and then it just shut down completely. It just stopped. And virtual stuff is quite different for somebody who speaks in the style that I speak. So I'm happy to be back into in-person things. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I learned something about Colombia. It took me 46 years apparently to learn that it's Colombia with an O and not with a
Colombia,
U.
yeah.
Colombia.
Yeah.
Now that's good branding.
Yes.
With the company. Yeah, yeah. So that was good. But I loved the country itself. I went for a women's retreat and did a little co-working thing to do some writing, and really explored a wide range of the community. I stayed in Medellin, and I got to go on a graffiti art tour, which was amazing, where they have ignited this passion and this sense of community here in this area, specifically Medellin, where they have a lot of murals, political murals, and
Mhm.
things like that. They've had a lot of galleries pop up to celebrate local artists, and so they give you a whole tour and talk about coffee, and there are hip hop performers and artists out on the street, and it's a really cool way to explore the city. I definitely recommend it, because what they do is they take young kids who are from that neighborhood, and we're talking about a neighborhood that had been just decimated by political strife and gangs, and back in the day the drug cartel, and so
Yeah.
they're really revitalizing that area, and young kids who are taught English, and then they give tours to tourists, and they're making money off the art and the music and the culture. It's beautiful.
That does sound amazing. I always think of Colombia being dangerous or something
Mm,
because of its history. Did you
yes.
feel safe there? Did it feel
Well, I went with a group, and so I went with somebody who's been living there off and on for the last 5 years, and she really knew her way. The
Yeah.
person who was leading our retreat, she really knew her way around, so that was cool. And I have, I've traveled to all 7 continents. I've been all over. I lived in Peru for a few months. I've been to tiny little islands in the South Pacific and different places. And so I've really experienced a wide range of what that's like. In Colombia, though, there is it's different. Every community has its own feel, its own flavor. Every
Yeah.
city has its own feel, its own flavor. And while you have to be very cautious and very aware, um, again, I experienced a wide range of the city. So we had an Airbnb that was like in a little probably everyday Colombian neighborhood kind of thing. I felt very
Right.
safe. It was very, we had a co-working space down the street. We could walk to the grocery. There was the soccer field, a football, I guess you would say, across the street. And so that was just fine. And then I went to the super touristy place where they had the hipster bars and the cool hotels, and the little, things are a little bit more expensive. And that was pretty cool too. And then I saw the real gritty part too. And we didn't stay in that area, but I think that every large city
Yeah.
has a gritty part. I mean, there are 4.2 million people in Medellin, in the city, so that's twice as many almost as Las Vegas. I think we're like at 2.2 here in Vegas. So There was a wide range, and I was just very, very cautious. The difference, though, because I've been to South America before and in different countries, the difference, though, is you can see it in the people who've really experienced that brutalization, that
Yeah.
savagery, who were terrorized by civil war for so long, just as recently as, even 20 years ago, as they're dealing
Yeah.
with like gangs, when the
Yeah.
gangs kind of took over from the cartel. And so those stories that, I would never repeat to anybody or share to anybody in the way that these young people have experienced growing up in their safety. They have a reverence for peace. They have they really feel the weight of that. And it was there's a depth to that kind of suffering and pain, to a soul who has had to overcome and understand that, at any moment as a young child, your neighbors, your friends, your family could somehow turn against you.
Yeah. Because I've watched all of that, all the documentaries
Yeah,
on all the gangs,
yeah,
and it's wonderful to hear that there's this progression and they're coming out the other
sure,
side. It sounds like
sure.
you got to experience so many different levels and
Yes,
layers of the culture
yes,
there in history. So you're
yeah,
very
yeah.
fortunate. Wow.
It was great. And, they have this in Medellin, they have this conservation area as well. Now, my degree is in ecology and environmental sciences. I was a plant geek
I
before.
didn't know
I was, yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. I studied chemical engineering for a long time. I had a scholarship, and I studied I got into an engineering school, specifically into their chemical engineering program. And I studied that for 3 years. I was in all of the advanced chemistry and chemical engineering and math courses. And I didn't like being in the labs, though.
Yeah.
I didn't like being in the lab. I'd be measuring and centrifuging and all of these tiny little minutia. I couldn't. And I was always smelling like acetone, because in those labs, it's just constant. And I was done, and I wanted to go out in the rainforest and study. So that's what I did. I got my degree in ecology and environmental sciences. So up on that mountaintop, I'll tell you, I was just in seventh heaven. It was great.
Just in your element.
Yeah, I was in my element. Yeah, so you could take a tram, and it
Yeah.
goes up from one peak to the other, up over across the city, and then you have to change it again and change it again, which is a perfect way to travel, by the way. So you don't have to go through all across the river and
Yeah.
all, because there are so many stairs. I swear, I hiked like 1,000 stairs up and down while I was in Medellin. But it was really cool. So we spent the whole day up there. They had a little market and a little conservation area and all these educational things about the rainforest. And it was beautiful. Loved it. Loved it.
It sounds amazing. I've
Mm-hmm.
always wanted to go and visit a rainforest.
Yeah.
And lots of people, well, maybe they do from my own stream, as I'm very into plants. I
Uh-huh.
love having them around. I used to
Uh-huh.
annoy my best friend at university, because we'd go for a walk. We were in North London, and we'd go out for a walk to go,
Mm.
I don't know, get some croissants on a Sunday morning. And I'm like, oh, isn't this plant lovely? And she's like, do you know the name of every flower and plant here? And I'm like, hey.
I don't know. I don't.
She's like,
Maybe.
can't you say that plant is pretty? Why do you have to give me practically its Latin name? I'm like,
Well,
fine.
that's me. Yeah, I used to be like that, and so I try not to do that. It like point out things to people, and I'm a natural teacher, and I'm very
Yes.
excitable, you know.
Yeah.
So
I'm seeing so many similarities between us. It's no wonder we're friends.
yeah, no, it's true. And so I try not to do that, because I've studied in the rainforest in Australia. I've spent time in the Yucatan, and of course in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, right on the shores of Lake Superior. It's like all forest, all trees. So I know a lot of that.
Wow.
Coming over to Vegas in the desert, I don't know a hell lot of Western plants and trees and cacti. But it was fun to be kind of in my element up there. And, in London, you have right where Devox UK is hosted, there's a sweet little park right around the corner. And I just watched a Christmas show. What was it? Last Christmas. And part of it was set in that little park. And I was like, oh, I know that place. That's where I kind of steal away. I forget the name. I did a TikTok video of it. I'm trying to remember. I don't have the name on me right now.
I'll have to find out then.
Yeah. And it makes it so much more real when you see the movie and then you're like, oh, that place actually exists and I've been there and I know that place. But I'm always trying to find a little park or a little place anytime I'm in a new place. If I'm not at the conference or around, I'm probably in a nearby forest playing.
Yeah, I like that too. I like to go and see all the different plants, and my old team used to be like, do you have to touch everything? I'm like, yes, the textures, all these plants. I love ferns. Like you can tell, like, here's my asparagus fern that lives on my desk, like
it's super fun. Yeah.
I just love it. And I love when I go to new cities just to see all the different trees and touch everything and all of that. So I find it, I call myself a nemophilist. So I love the woods and forests, and I get a lot from them, and I like tree bathing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's fantastic. So how did you go from chemical engineering and ecology to brains?
Yeah. So I was working right out of school. I got a internship. I worked for the Colorado Geological Survey, and I was doing, geological surveying stuff, maps and stuff like that. Then I got a job with federal highways, and I would travel to national parks all over the country and do a survey of their road and pavement quality. So and that would determine how much money they received to have any kind of improvements or things like that. So I've seen almost every single national park in the country, which is really, really cool in 11 months. But so I was working. I was working about 80 hours a week. And the way that we collected the data is we had this customized van. And so every single cord, every single, we'd have like 20 pin connectors, random. We had 9 computers. We had 26 ultrasonic sensors. We measured the pitch of the road. We measured all these. We were taking 360-degree camera view. This was before Google Maps. It was funny. In fact, I replaced the contractor before me, who went off to drive a different van for Google. And I was like, Google, you mean the web search thing? And they're like, yeah, apparently they're making a map or something, or they're doing something. And now, of course, it's
Street View everywhere. Yeah,
a Street View everywhere. So that's what I did. I carried. It was even before GPS was, just so accurate to the point of being able to pinpoint where we are. I would have to wear a backpack with this big antenna, and we'd be out there walking to survey. All right, here's a parking lot. We'd drop a pin, and here's a parking lot to map out the area. And it was accurate to 3 feet, 1 meter. That was the accuracy. And of course, now you can just find anybody anywhere with your phone, right? And I was doing that, and it was really, really nerve-wracking because the computers were always breaking down. If you put 9 computers in a van and drive it across the country back and forth and zigzag in the cold and in the heat, and things go wrong. Well, I eventually was traveling so much, and I would realize that the first thing that I would do when I go into any town is I would go to the library and jump on their computer. And even though I flunked computers in class, like I was horrible at computers. I had to take 1 computer class, and I went to an engineering school, and they were all super smart, and they were all programmers. And I took 1 computer class, and I remember sitting in the room with my housemates one time, and I was sitting there going, it's computers. It's not going so well. And they're like, what do you mean? What class? I'm like, I'm taking CS 110. And they were like, no, Christina, no, you're not. They don't make CS classes that low. And I was like, yes, they do. And I'm flunking it. It's and my professor, he gave me a very sympathetic D. He gave me a D minus just so I could pass, because I tried so hard and I did all of the things, and it was awful. But then what happened was, as far as using the computers, like, I realized I could very intuitively use pretty much anything electronic. And so any programs, any things like that. And as I was in libraries, or I was visiting people or family or friends or whatever, I was always helping them with their computer stuff. And then eventually I got one, and I learned how to make websites with Dreamweaver. I was drag and drop, I was doing
yeah. I've done a little bit with it.
Yeah. And then a couple of years after that, CSS came. And so I learned CSS and started doing that. And then, that's kind of how I got into building websites. And people would send me something. I went into business on my own. I was doing freelancing on the side. And people would send me websites, and they'd go, Christina, I want this website, and here's it's blue. We're going to make it all blue. And I'd say, great. Why don't you send me your pamphlets, your business card, your logo? And their logo would be green. Their pamphlets would be orange. I'm like, no. That's not working. Listen,
we're not having a rainbow.
Right. We're not having a rainbow. Everything has to match. And then I was doing a lot of this educational stuff with people, how it had to match. And then people would say, hey, Christina, thanks so much for building me a website. It's not working. I'd be like, what do you mean it's not working? And I'd go online and be like, no, your website's up. It's working. They'd be like, yeah, but I'm not making any money. And I'd be like, oh, you wanted to make money. You just said you wanted a website. So then I got more into like brand strategy and how to make, convert things, and emotional intelligence, and connecting our products, and connecting with people, and product launches, and all of those things. And then, of course, with my own personal journey on the side, running alongside that through improving mental health, and overcoming my own different brain things, because my brain is a very unique kind of brain. I learned, and that's how I got to be here today. Yeah. Emotional intelligence is my jam these days.
As your posters behind you say,
lots
of that.
Yeah.
Good morning, 12-ounce pound cake. I had to really slow down and say that then.
12-ounce pound cake.
Thank you for coming and hanging out
Great
with us.
Name.
So let me just drop another thingy for you. That's all the details about Christina on the chat there. So you started to focus on conference talks around brains and using them.
Yeah.
And I know you're on a lot of the .NET circuit, which is why I know you, and things like that. And because you work a lot with developer brains, don't you?
Right. I work a lot with developer brains. So because my own brain is, a little bit different, and I've learned so many techniques and tricks and hacks to still show up and still perform despite whatever I kind of have going on, then it was a natural fit for me to work with developers. Usually if I'm in a training room, if I'm doing a workshop, there are at least 2 or 3 people in there who are, trying to perform anyway, despite ADHD, or maybe they're on the autism spectrum, or things like that. Maybe they've gone through PTSD like I have, and they're trying to overcome. So that's kind of what I started doing. I used to speak about SEO. I used to speak about websites. I used to speak about marketing content. And then it just slowly got more into like setting boundaries and managing yourself, and trying to make your brain work, even with brain fog, even with COVID brain, right? Even with the craziness that everybody's been dealing with in the last few years all over the world. There's been nobody untouched by COVID-19. Yeah.
And it's really interesting, the brain fog, and I notice it in myself this past 18 months. Before COVID, I had somewhat of a photographic memory, and
Lucky.
it really helps with exams and things like that. I remember being able to recall my page of notes visually in my brain when I was doing my exams and pick out the answers. It was very clear to me. I think that diminishes with age unless you really practice.
It's a practice thing, sure. It really is.
Because I know you've taught people how to, is it your memory castle? Is that one word for it?
Yeah, your mind palace. Yeah, so
that's
I
it,
do a
mind
workshop.
palace. I was close with memory castle.
Yeah, just like Sherlock Holmes,
Yeah.
So I do a workshop about different types of ways. First, we understand how our brains work. Our brains encode, store, and retrieve data in very specific ways. And, there are a lot of different points at which the communication can break down. And so you can have these tweaks. My specialty is, well, I'm no expert in brains, or I'm an expert in my brain. And so sharing what I've learned often helps people get better results in their work, and the things that we can understand and have certain tips for. Where is that breaking down? At what part? Is it just encoding information? Is it the storing of information? Is it retrieving information? And then when we practice, like you said, when we practice, you can actually really build a complex mind palace for remembering those things. And we go through that in my workshop. We put it all together at the end of my workshop. And then, of course, I send people off into the world and say, now go forth and build your castle. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you find that developers have a certain type of brain, like characteristics that you see again and again with developers?
Sure. Yeah. I work especially with developers in mentorship and with coaching, executive coaching, things like that. And what happens is our industry, specifically the developer industry, fosters people who can hyper focus, people who can multitask. I'm always in awe of Twitch streamers, because it's like you are completely managing all of these things, right? You've got chat, you've got the music, you've got this, we're going to take a break, here are little pop-ups there, there's all of these moving things. And in the before times, I probably would have been able to keep up with that stuff, but these days I just can't. I don't have that brain capacity, and so tech people can really do that kind of stuff. Your brains, and like you said, if you use it and if you practice, that quality is called neuroplasticity, by the way. Then your brain really sinks in and hones in on those neural pathways. There's going to be more protein synthesis right at those connectors. The myelin sheaths are going to be improved, so the connectivity for electricity is going to be improved. All of those things happen, and you can develop your memory better and better and better and better, despite having issues with focus, or sometimes, in the case of ADHD people, there are a lot of conflicting things that they might have, right? Like they might want to really, really hyper focus, but then these other little small things drop. It's very nuanced, and so that'll happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So Steve has just shared here that there's a Channel 4 show about can I improve my memory, so that's good to know. Excellent. And Copper Beardy also said that he loves memory palaces. Use them through your degrees. Oh, that's awesome. And Sherlock Holmes uses them, and also one of my favorite TV shows, The Mentalist, he definitely did that. I have found that my mental capacity has just diminished. And my partner was saying some of that is the constant demands of social media.
Right.
And like I found myself unable to focus on one thing. I'd be
Mhm.
watching TV and needing to scroll through Instagram, and like I would be watching the TV, but I'd be also taking in this other feed.
Yeah.
And you know, he pointed me to some articles where they're saying that we're eroding our ability to concentrate by
Mhm.
all these feeds. And you know, what
Mhm.
would you say for how you can help improve these symptoms and ADHD and this lack of ability to get into a flow and things
Yeah.
like that? The
Well,
tips and tricks.
it's that neuroplasticity again, and so we all have that quality. Some of us, there's a wide range. If you given a population of 100 people, right, there's always going to be someone at this end, and it's just that's how it is. So we all have this wide range and this ability, but because of how neuroplasticity works, is that once you decide with intention that this is the result that you want, then you can change your behavior. And so you have to decide with intention. That's the first thing, and have that willingness. And then what happens is, as you start focusing on things for longer than 7 seconds, your brain then will connect, and slowly you can reprogram your brain again to focus more. So taking your phone away from your bed. I don't have screens in our bedroom. I know some people put TV on, but that will also disrupt, because your ocular nerve gets stimulated, and you're not making your melatonin before sleep, which is what we need to sleep and to rest. And with intention, as you are no longer stimulating those neural pathways that shift every 7 seconds. As you stop doing that, those neural pathways, they dissolve, they fall away. So just as if you know, they say that you have to use it to lose. If you don't use it,
Use
you'll
it
lose
or
it.
lose
Right.
it.
Use it or lose it. Right. That's what happens. And so neuroplasticity works both ways. We can train our mind to learn more things and build up those protein synthesis at the sites, increase our myelin sheath connectivity. Just as we are not stimulating it, we decrease the connectivity. The proteins, they fall away, and those neural pathways then will also dissolve, because we're not using them anymore. So it's intentional. You have to really focus, and if that, whatever reminder that is for you, break up that 7 second attention span.
I think I have managed to do that. So
Yeah.
in the past month or 6 weeks, I deleted all the social apps off my phone. I like deleted Twitter and Discord
Mm-hmm.
and Instagram, just so
Mm-hmm.
they weren't there, because
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'd have my phone in my hand,
Yeah.
and I had gone through, before I even registered what I was doing,
Yeah.
I'd unlocked it, I'd gone to where the Twitter app is, and I was looking at Twitter, and I'm like, I don't even
Recall.
recall,
Yeah, you go on autopilot.
like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
So like removing the apps has
Yeah.
really helped.
Yeah.
And I put the apps back on, just Twitter the other day, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I almost noticed myself reaching for it, and I was like, no, I
Yes.
don't need to. And
It gets
I feel
easier and
like,
easier. Yeah.
yeah, breaking that habit. So it's interesting that it's a chemical thing inside, and a biological thing that's happening in our brains to
Absolutely. Yeah. As we
undo those networks.
re-stimulate those neural pathways, we stimulate them more and more and more, and those connections grow. Our brains are really, really good at that. They're like, oh, you want more of this? Okay, cool. Let's do it. That's awesome. I'm in. Another tip that I give to people is to create passwords. If you really, really are going to find yourself re-logging into those apps, create passwords that create mindfulness. So things like, for example, in my learning to say no talk, right? I would I would log out from Facebook for so as many times as we go onto Twitter, as many times as we go into Instagram or Facebook, and then I change my password to learning to say no. No is totally my jam, making those things, because it's intentional, and it just gives you that little extra. because as I am typing it, I'm also reading it and I'm hearing it in my voice. And what we know about our brains is that they store data in chunks. And the more chunks and parts of our brain that we can activate at a time, the more that those neural pathways are going to link up, and we're going to remember, and we're going to learn whatever those data are, whatever that information is we want to learn. Mm-hmm.
That is, it is interesting that sort of positive affirmation almost to try and undo negative behaviors.
Yeah. And I'm not talking about positive affirmation like, oh, you just need to think positively and then it's going to go, or I'm just going to repeat a mantra over and over again. The first step, remember, that number one thing is the self-awareness. And when we talk about emotional intelligence, there are 4 different parts. And so that first step is always awareness of self, awareness of others, management of self, management of others. And so you can repeat things over and over again mindlessly without intention. And you're not, that's like people talk about The Secret and the law of attraction and things like that. That's not really helpful. You have to first have that willingness and that intentional thought, that mindfulness. Yeah. I forgot my password again.
Yeah, I like that bit.
Yeah.
It is interesting. I was reading, someone at work shared a TED talk by this very interesting lady. I can't remember her name. She's a doctor, on power poses.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fascinated by this. I'm watching this TED talk. I'll find it, folks, for you, and pop that there.
Yeah, that's a good talk, where she talks about how just even standing, tall and doing, and where that comes from is a lot of it is about the vagus nerve. So it's not just woo-woo stuff. It is scientifically, researched over and over again. I read a lot of white papers and research from National Institute of Health. I'm such a, I know, for fun. But I'm reading this great book. I guess I don't have it on my desk right now, about the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is very interesting in how it comes out of your brain. A big part of my chronic pain for decades was I had 2 major nerve bundles out of my brainstem that were impinged. And so it was causing me a lot of problems with on my left side. I was misdiagnosed with carpal tunnel and fibromyalgia, a bunch of other things. And as it turns out, it was a physical, actual, just squishing those neural pathways in my nervous system, causing me panic and a lot of that stuff. Once you have connectivity and your nerves can actually communicate with your organs and your body and everything, and a lot of that is standing up straight with the power pose, as opposed to here. This is what we do this too as developers. We're in front of our machine all the time. Anybody really, right? And this right here is going to squish up. And even right in here, our nerves that are coming down, there's a lot of opportunities for inflammation and for impingement here. And that'll cause a lot of pain. That'll cause a lot of brain fog.
Yes.
I would have it, my hands would be numb and I'd be sitting there working anyway, not feeling my fingers, and my brain would be going, stop, alert, and I would just be ignoring it. So there's another thing called nerve flossing. And so our nerves, you can actually do very specific exercises and isolate the exact nerve. And you kind of very gently, not too intensely, but gently, you can floss the nerve between those inflamed tissues, and really start helping to improve, again, how your nerves are connecting and how they're sending signals to your hands and your other extremities.
I remember when I trained as a biomechanics coach, we looked into various versions of nerve flossing, because you can do it wrong quite easily.
That's right. You can do it wrong. Yeah.
So we looked into different ways of doing that. And it can, using your own body's resistance as well, can really release tension and things. And as you say, it's like there's bundles here, and when you come forward, you're trapping them under you. Yeah,
That's right.
everything just closes down.
Yeah.
And it can be amazing, the brain fog that you get, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think just being able to take be conscious of how much time you're doing in front of the code. And so many developers sit like
Sure.
this, we're reading code, we're
Sure.
studying it, and then you've already,
Right. Or
like,
sometimes I'll even forget my glasses. I'll find myself, right, all of it, like, oh, wait, why do I do it? I'm squinting. How is it? I was lucky enough to find a personal trainer who is brain-based and neuroscience-based, which is really cool. So for me, whenever I am exercising, whenever I'm working out, whenever I always hear their voice in my head, make it look easy, because if you're lifting weights and you're struggling then you're telling your brain struggle. Or if you're moving into pain, then you're telling your brain, you're stimulating that, you're going pain, pain, pain. And your brain goes, oh, we know what to do. Okay, pain, got it. Here we go, pain.
Yeah.
And so having a trainer really helped me work through things that they teach you in traditional exercising that isn't always healthy for your brain, because at the end of the day, we really only have one nerve. We have one nerve. Our brain is like our central nervous system, but it's all connected. And so if we've got a nerve jammed up or pinched in our ankle or in our thumb from hitting that space bar or cranking on the return, so
the scrolling through Instagram,
then our whole entire nervous system experiences that. And if we're moving into pain, then we're training our body. And this is sometimes where we get people, it's the strangest thing, but our brains can do weird things. For example, my trainer was working with a 9-year-old kid who had stubbed his toe and broke his toe. And at the same time was taken out of school for a week for the flu. Well, then what happened was that even after the toe healed and even after the flu healed, 6-9 months later, kid was still out of school. He'd wake up every morning, throw up, wake up. Gosh. And it was having all these issues because for that week, his brain had linked the two. Like, okay, we have toe pain and we're going to throw up. And so the kid was like, toe pain, throw up, until they figured out that some of those nerves were still kind of pinched in his toe, worked that out. And then his brain was able to let go of the association. Yeah. So strange, really strange.
I've seen that with animals. They have remembered pain, and it's very hard to break that association.
Yeah.
And I think all of these things contribute to burnout, whether that's as developers or whatever you do. I think developers seem to struggle a lot with burnout because it's very intense brain work.
Yeah.
And we tend to, if we are lucky enough to get into a flow, that could be 8 hours where you barely leave your computer.
Yes.
And so I think it's just trying to release all of these things. I tell my
clients, if I'm coaching a developer, I'll tell them set an alarm for 1 hour.
Yeah.
And 1 hour for 30 seconds, for 90 seconds, just do this. Do the opposite of what you've been doing for the last hour, hunched over. Do the opposite. And that is enough to change your brain, just interrupt that pattern a little bit, let go of the hyper focus, because what happens is really those last few hours of an 8-hour, 10-hour marathon of coding, you're really not as effective.
No.
No matter what you want to tell yourself, because it might feel good because you're hyper focusing and you're getting those chemicals. It's just biology. And so if you need to just pause and reset your brain a little bit, then you can get back into it. And also, I think, that's a really good one.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Nick.
That developers tend to get shamed because you're mostly working with your brains and shouldn't feel tired or whatever. That's not true. And in fact, our brains give off 100 watts of energy just sitting still. We could power a light bulb, 100-watt light bulb, just sitting still. And that's not when we're really, really thinking and cooking, you know? So it's interesting to think about that. Got to take those breaks, got to really honor your brain. We need lots of water. We need sugar, fat, and protein. I know people aren't into sugar these days, and a lot of people are doing keto or whatever, but we need the proper ratios. I don't really see food as nutrients and minerals and macro and micro these days. I look at fuel, especially for somebody like me, where I've had to overcome PTSD and complex grief and other bits of trauma. After a major panic attack, or even after delivering a keynote or delivering, a 6-hour workshop, you'll see me immediately after going for the sugar, the protein, and the fat. Like, I got to feed my brain.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. So, you see how you're at home always busy. I tell you, something really interesting about changing habits is I have this chair. I'm sat on it now because I can't stand stationary for any length of time. I can walk for hours, but I can't be static because of my hypermobility problems. So I got this chair, and I switched between this chair and my general fancy office chair. And I have used nothing but my weird chair since December. And I saw my osteopath about 3 weeks ago, and she says, your back is really different. What have you been doing? And I said, the only thing I've changed is my chair. And one thing is interesting about this. You may see that I'm moving. And my chair is on a rocker. I can pop my arms behind it, like it's got. I can try and lift it up and sort of show you. Hang on, it's rather odd. So it's like a kneeling chair, but with a rocker on it, but it's got this fancy back, and it has like this stopper at the back, so I can literally sling myself back.
Yeah, perfect.
And open
once an hour.
It's amazing how just changing one little habit has been quite amazing. It's reduced my neck pain. I feel more stable, even though I'm always moving. And this chair killed me when I first got it. I had
it takes practice. It takes practice, and then once your spine starts to correct, because I have bone spurs in my neck from too much of the thing, and I've got yellow lenses right here. I've got a pair of white yellow glasses. You can get them on Amazon. Sometimes yellow isn't even the best for you. My Jay, he has red glasses, and that's what calms down his brain. Specifically, but it filters out those blue light, right? And again, we were talking about earlier how we need to have the sleeping chemicals, and that blue light just prevents it. So those glasses, you can get them. They're like $7 on online anywhere. And I wear those
Fritz
to help.
Wears streaming.
That's right.
C-Sharp Fritz on his streams, he usually has them.
Yeah.
They look like anti-glare or night driving glasses. I know my dad in the 80s would wear these yellow glasses for driving at night.
Yeah. And it calms down your nervous system because it's filtering out that light, and it doesn't make you as tired then. Yeah. No. And when you love what you do, that's the other thing. When you love what you do and you're hyper focused in things, you want to sit at your machine longer. You want to, and our industry really, it rewards people for that, which is good. And also, it puts the onus on us to make sure that we're managing and protecting our brain by filtering out the lights, by feeding our brain protein, sugar, fats, by stopping every, 1 hour and stretching a little bit. Maybe do the chicken necks a little, maybe the Egyptian chicken. I do an Egyptian chicken too.
I do like roll downs, just stretching out the back. Because when you come forward like this, you're actually causing tension up the back of your neck because you're
Correct.
shortening those muscles and
Right. Yeah.
tendons. So
It adds 5 pounds for every inch that you're doing. So your head becomes heavier
yeah.
for every little inch. Yeah.
So it's really amazing just to stop and do a few movements, changing habits like having the
Yeah.
glasses. I actually got sent this monitor light
Mm.
through from BenQ to try. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd never really thought about a monitor light. I'd have my big key lights on to light my desk, especially, in the UK where we're so far north and we have these
Sure.
really miserable, dark winters. And I wasn't expecting it to make such a difference, but it
Mm.
has this warm yellow light cast over just my keyboard and my desk. And I found just by balancing out the blue light of my monitors with a warm yellow light,
Yeah.
I'm not so tired. My eyes don't ache at the end of the day. So,
Right.
if you had like a little lamp, just like Beardy, you said your multiple screens, if you had
Mm-hmm.
like a warm light there just to balance, it can help.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think these little changes.
Yeah, we're so used to in our society, we want a we want a thing. I want a solution. I want a
Yeah.
pill. I want a something. But unfortunately, that's not how change happens. Change happens by small, tiny, incremental
Yeah.
things. And for me, like I said, I'm writing my book. I have a whole chapter about what worked, and it's like 60 different things that I vacillate, around, okay, I'm tired of doing this. All right, I'll paddleboard during the summer. I'll snowboard in the winter. I'll do yoga for a bit. I'll go for walks for a bit. It just depends. But the more tools that I have in my toolbox and the willingness I have to use them, then those changes, they start to add up. Those small little changes add up to big changes in our behavior. And before you know it, it's just automatic that you grab your yellow glasses. It's just automatic that you're going to set your alarm on Saturdays to get out on the water and step away from your machine. And so it's important. Oh yeah, your eyes start to deteriorate when you move to
Yeah.
Ireland. Yeah, because the sun. Sure. Yep. And so it's important to really take care of your brain, because we've only got, remember, just one nervous
Yes.
system, one nerve. That's it.
That's
And
it.
our brain manages it all.
And I'm just going to drop a link to your website here now,
Mm-hmm.
Christina, just so if you want to, do you see where you're speaking
Oh,
next? Is it on there?
yep. I see. Yep. Lucky Girly Girl.
Yes, there we go.
There I am. Sure. And there is a link on my site that has free stuff and free tools. And it talks about ways that you can improve your memory. There's a little memory game where you can practice. And I encourage people to practice and time themselves on it. It's a little memory card game. And when you do those types of activities, again, you're training your brain to perform despite, right? Despite brain fog, despite if you have the unfortunate thing like I do about having to overcome PTSD, any kind of traumatic grieving, things like that. We can train our brain because of neuroplasticity, and we can build those things back up, even if we're struggling in some other area, even if you have ADHD, even if maybe you're on the autism spectrum, there are still other things that you can do to improve your brain performance.
I totally believe this, because I used to have just things like I used to have imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I trained out that sort of panic response I
Right.
had to it. And I was able to train that out, and there's still lingering thoughts of it, but it's not debilitating
But
anymore.
you're managing
Yeah.
those thoughts now. And so it's not that those thoughts go away completely. It's now that you're just managing them. And when we do something that we're afraid of, or we think we're not good enough at, when we do it anyway through those feelings, we get feedback. And so after every iteration, right, we get different feedback and we gain confidence each time until we hear that voice that maybe creeps in, or those feelings that come up in wherever they are in our body, the anxiety or the not good enough, and we gain more confidence, and we can slowly, we can overcome those feelings.
Yeah. So Christina, I know you've got a very busy day ahead, so we're going to wrap up soon. What would you like to share? So your book is coming soon.
Oh yeah, my book
when
is
can we
coming
read that?
soon. Yeah, my book, I just printed the manuscript and sent it. I'm sending it off to the editors when it comes back. So that'll be the first draft. I don't know when it'll come out. It depends on how much the editors cut it up. It's called Imposter, Memoir of a Fraud. And it's all about my life and feeling like an imposter my whole life, feeling like an imposter daughter. You know, I'm the only Asian in my family. I grew up in the shores of Lake Superior, way north, as we were talking. The imposter student, because Asians are supposed to be good at math, and I had a chemical engineering scholarship, and then I moved on to study plant ecology and environmental sciences. The imposter wife, entrepreneur, the imposter speaker, trainer, and even within myself, feeling like an imposter within my own brain and my own mind, and how I overcame that. And my last chapter of the book is called Coming Together While the World Falls Apart, because that's pretty much what I've been doing in the last 3 years. And so I'm really happy to have this book out, and I hope people like it. I really hope it helps people in working through their own stuff as well.
Yeah. And are there any sort of lasting things you want to share with anybody? I'm going to get your Twitter now and just drop a link to your Twitter.
Yeah, I'm lucky girly girl everywhere on the interwebs, and I really think that the thing that I'd like to share most is when we're talking about emotional intelligence. Remember, in those 4 parts, it's awareness of self first, awareness of others, management of self, and management of others. And I think that a lot of times right now, it's easy, especially since anybody has that ability to jump on social media, it's easy to jump over to management of others instead of that self-awareness. And we can't have empathy for others until we have empathy for ourselves, until we have that self-talk and learn how to almost reparent and encourage and give ourselves internally a hug. And so I would like to encourage everybody as we leave today to just, maybe give themselves a hug and be a little bit more compassionate with themselves and a little bit more empathetic with others. That'll come because as we're more kind to ourselves in that internal dialogue, then we're going to be more kind to others in that external dialogue.
That's really fantastic note to finish on. So thank you so much, Christina. It's been wonderful just chatting brains and just hearing a little bit about your adventures. And where are we going to see, where am I going to see you next? But where can people see you next?
Let's see. I'm not doing a whole lot of in-person. I'm slowly maybe picking up a little bit more virtual things this year for the first time. So I will be at DevSum. I'll be at DevSum. I'm always in Kansas City. I'm doing the opening keynote at Codepalooza. I'll probably be, I really enjoy DevOps UK, so I'll probably be there. Those are just a few off the top of my head that I'm kind of thinking about this year.
Awesome. Well, we're going to go and do a raid now, Christina. And folks, in 25 minutes back here is my awesome teammate, Nate, is going to be having another chat show between chair and keyboard. I do know his guest. I did look at who his guest was. Brain. There's a Neil. I think there was a Neil in the name. Neil Busing. I'm probably really butchering that name. And they're going to have a catch up. Neil is a principal solutions architect, and they're just going to be having a chat about Kafka and general people things. So yes, Java Grant, that's where I was going to be heading over for our raid. So you can catch Nate and Neil in 25 minutes, and go follow Christina wherever she is on the interweb. And thank you so much for joining us. So I'm going to kick off the raid, Christina. Let me do that. There we are. So I'll just do that. Perfect. So I'm going to start that. Thank you so much, everybody. I will be back next Tuesday with my good friend Alex Dunn. He has developed loads of things with voice and .NET. It's going to be awesome. He's a fantastic person, very kind and very genuine. So yeah, that will be good next Tuesday at 4:30. And thank you again, Christina. We're going to head on out now, folks. So let me put up the thank you for watching. Go say a big old hello to Kadamila. I just butchered that as well. And we'll see you next time. So thanks. Bye.